Unfortunately, I can't get the right program to work because I've just updated my iMac and to the Yosemite program, and unfortunately, the proper screen flow where I can actually point to each individual package and talk over it isn't quite working on my iMac. So you've got to listen to me and my debrief. So apologies for that. But anyway, let's talk about last week's bulletin. Firstly, well done. It's a really good bulletin. It's what I would say. It's a bit long, and I think this is a record. I think it was about 23 and a bit minutes. Now that's a long time for us to fill, and I know we've got lots of people, and we've got lots of good stories again because there's a really good blend of stories. But just because you've got so much doesn't mean you have to fill as much as we have done, because there is some certain editing that could be done there to reduce the size of some of those packages. So be careful that we do, just because we have an abundance of stories and all of them are worthy of a place, that we don't overfill it. Let's get on with the headlines then. They're pretty good headlines. I think the sound mix we need to work on, but some really good grabs in there. Be careful on the first headline. Look at that first headline again. There are black holes in there. Now that may be because on the police video that you're using, there are black holes, but we don't like that. We don't like black holes. They may have used that for effect, but we don't do that in news. So you've got to be able to cover those black holes. It may have just been the way you edited it, and it's not very good. The second headline is very good. It's a bit tight, but you've picked the perfect grab out of it. So it's really hard hitting. And really well chosen for that one. The third one is a great shot because we know it's a great goal and it's good to have the sport as the third one, but the words don't quite work. Dreams are over, I think you say, but actually it's a brilliant goal. So how does that work? It's sort of, there's a conflict there between words and pictures that don't quite go together when you know the full story. Okay, let's move on to the stories themselves. As I say, there's some really good stories this week, and what I'm really impressed with is the way you are beginning to tell that story in your package. There is an art to actually telling them a story, and many of you, Toby, I'd say you've done it, Brooke, really good storytelling, Josh as well, and I like what you've done, Nadija, in yours too. It's just an art of being able to tell that story, and you have done it. Even the sports guys doing their sports roundup, you are telling the story, not just saying what you see, but you're adding facts. So well done, everybody, on that score. Right then, Brooke, your piece, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think you've done very well. You've used the police pictures, that is fine. Because it really fleshes out a story that was not going to have many pictures. So that's absolutely fine using that. You've got a victim yourself. You've shot it properly. You've changed the voice. That's perfectly fair. Good technique, what you've done there. And what I would say is when you've got the bubble stats coming through, you've got a graphic which you've used at the police, and you go down the line, and they're absolutely fine to use. The last one, you just haven't quite held on it long enough, and you don't use it in your voiceover. So the viewer is trying to read that, but cannot because it's gone. And they're now thinking about something else that you're saying. So you've just got to make sure that words and pictures match. But I thought it was very nicely written. I think you've got to be careful not to be too deliberate with some of your voice, some of your words and language. You talk about the perpetrators. It's a very old-fashioned word. Let's try and use conversational words to explain. Make it understandable for everyone, not that sort of slightly archaic way. As far as the studio interview is concerned, Megan, I just felt that you weren't necessarily in control of it. And I think we asked too many questions. I think 3 questions are enough. I know you think, right, we've got a studio guest in, we must ask him a whole load of questions. Well, not necessarily, because if you go on and on, actually it detracts from the interview. And he did go on for quite a long time. And I think you could just have 3 questions there, and that would have sufficed. And also, I think it's Mimi you were directing. Just think about using the other camera angle as a two-shot rather than this one. So I think it's camera 3 all the time. You could have used it on camera 1, and bearing in mind that, Megan, we cut to a two-shot, you were looking at the wrong camera. So it's just something you need to practice. Even if the guest isn't in the studio, put a stooge in the studio so that somebody else sits in that seat and you work at the shot changes. They're always going to look a little bit strange because we use a chroma key and it's the same background and it looks like people are jumping all over the place. That's part of the problem with our studio. Don't worry about that, but try and get it so that Megan will be looking at the right camera at least. Okay, the next story, Toby, you did. This is a tremendous human interest story. It's really good. I thought it was really nicely told. There's some great setup shots in here. Really good setup shots that is just a simple sequence to be able to get us into, I think it's Megan Bremen, I think that's the mother's name. What I would say though is your piece to camera, which is written really well. What you've done, and look at this everybody, that what Toby has done is added something to the story at the end. And that is hugely important. And he's added something that probably couldn't be covered with pictures, or could, but it would just be very dull pictures. And what he's actually done is taken the story on. It adds a lovely bit at the end of this story. It's very well done. What you physically need to do though is slow down your speech because I think it's a little bit too quick. And as far as the car going past, look, I know you're standing on the side of a road, but actually it was very noisy. So do one again when there aren't any cars there. You've still got the harvester in the background. It just makes it a little bit better. But I thought it was a really nicely told story. So from that point of view, very well done. Moving on to the firefighters, Josh. Again, you've told this story very well, and you've got a good piece to camera, just like Toby. You've added something to the story. You've explained the argument. I think you did it very well. The sound isn't very good though. In fact, the sound is dreadful. So it actually made it hard to hear what you said, which is unfortunate because you did it well. And again, you've told the story well. What I would say, well, two things that stand out from this piece, Josh. Firstly, there's a very good range of shots. Again, you've got a very good grab at the beginning from one of the firefighters who's complaining about things. I think you could have got more voices of firefighters who are pissed off, basically. And that would have added to it. But also, I think this story, it comes out about 2 minutes 15, and I think that's too long. It dragged towards the end. There was a point where I thought, that's the end of it, he's going to sign off, and then no, you didn't, and there was a bit more. And I know you're trying to throw the story forward, but just felt it dragged, and I think you could have had a bit of discipline there in cutting out some of that, and 2 minutes 15 for a strike story is a very long time. So while I think you compiled it well, and you have explained it well, I just think you could edit various bits out of it and just make it tighter as a package. But again, I'm really pleased with the range of shots you used there because it didn't feel like it was dragging until the end because you had so many shots to cover. And that's very important. Okay, let's move on to the Southern Water story and the water meters. Nadija, this is a good story. Again, you've told it really well. And you've got somebody to talk to about who it affects. You've used a range of shots. You used a sequence of someone opening a fridge door, taking milk out, making a cup of tea. It's a staple diet. That's what it is. Not the tea, but the way you've done it, where you've put the sequences together. So well done from that point of view. It just looked like a grown-up and well-made package. What I would say, though, is that I think you're overexposed on your first shot. It seemed that way. It may be in the way that has sort of degraded in being uploaded, but it looked a little bit overexposed. And when you are interviewing somebody or shooting somebody inside as part of a sequence, then it makes sense to interview them inside as well and not go outside. And you went outside and you also did this resident first, and I didn't quite understand why you did that. It made sense to talk to the person that you were using in the setup shots. And another thing about your Winchester resident, we should always find out who they are, or if you're just using it as a vox pop, and I think you could have used more people as vox pops, then you don't need to name them at all. They are just Joe Public, and people understand they don't need names. So you don't need to say Winchester resident. What we didn't see, I think, is a shot of a water meter and where they were and how they'd been put into this house. And presumably this woman, the lady that you spoke to, had a water meter. I wanted to see a water meter. That's what it's all about, and we haven't seen one. And a bit more running water. So that would have helped the story, really. Remember what the story's about and try and get that into the story. As far as our phono stuff is concerned, I didn't see why the words were there. I don't think it's designed properly yet. Callum, if you're designing it, then I think we need to work on it. And you put some of the words up, having written them out, but then not the whole of his comments. And it just didn't quite work at all. So we need to work on that. So we've still got our template. It just was not quite right. But again, well done for telling that story. This heart problem story with a father whose daughter died. Yeah, it's a touching story, and the father is actually very moving because he's just very frank about what happened to his daughter. You've used nice pictures of her. I appreciate it is just a couple of shots and a half a story, but Callum, you work well to put them together. It's I think you say in risk, but actually it's at risk at the top, and you're usually very good with your words, so that was a bit strange. I think you could have used a range of shots on the squash courts rather than just being high up. You've got one shot basically, which I think you use over and over again. Use it at the beginning and the end. I like the symmetry of coming back to that point, but you just need to get a range of shots. Get out on the court as well and get some shots of people playing around. Just to vary it, really. And there was no sign off on this, and I'm not quite sure why there was no SOQ, so I don't understand that. But it's a story that stands up. It's a really nice story. So well done for getting it. I think the quality of the stories is great. The news in brief. Well, there was only one story. It was okay. It was a bit worthy. There was a good range of shots. I just feel if you've got one, there must be another one knocking around. And otherwise, it did break up the bulletin, and the balance of that is good. But I still think you need another one. Okay, Lauren, your story about the chemist. I absolutely love this story, and I really like the way you use sequences. You've got a range of shots. I mean, this is a sophisticated way of putting a package together. It was a terrific selection. He was great. You've got him in different. I mean, clearly he played ball and did everything that he wanted to because he's very happy with it. But I just think you got lots of the aspects right of shooting a package, and that is vital. It was voiced well, but I wanted to hear from the punters. Why is this chemist so special? How has he helped you? Is he open all hours of day or night, or what made him so special? It's great getting him, but let's get the people going into the chemist saying this man's brilliant. He saved my life. Okay, that's overstating it, but he's always so helpful. He helped me with my piles, whatever it might be, just anything to reflect on him. And I just think you want it from Joe Public, and that's where Vox Pops are actually really, really good. But otherwise, I really liked it. Let's go on to sport. Athlete, great. Be careful what you do with your hands. I know I've done this while I've been doing this video, trying to explain things. And when I do that, you can see that actually they look bigger than I am. They stand out. You get nearer and nearer the camera, they look bigger and bigger. So I look like this slightly deranged person with massive hands. So you just got to be careful what you do, because it does take people's minds off you and what you're trying to say if you use your hands too much. I think you really worked on your links. I think they were a lot better. I think as far as the first story, I think Elliot, you did this story. It was good to start with the awards. That's exactly it. Just breaks it up, not just a normal start to the story. So you're thinking about what the story is. If you could, get down on the pitch. If you know something like that, get down on the pitch and do it, and then run up top and do it. Or if you've got a second camera, get them to do it. It just would have made it a little bit better. I think it was shot quite wide though, this first match, and you need to tighten in a bit. Otherwise, it's all a bit, oh, can I see what that is? Yeah, just about, but you feel so far away from the action. So you do need to just squeeze in a bit, be a bit bolder with the way that you shoot. Be careful you don't say what you see, because I can see that the ball goes in the corner, so I don't want to be told that. What I did like is each time you did say that, is you followed it by a good stat, and there was real thought about getting the good stats in. So that was great. Remember, if you see a penalty, go in and get a tight shot. You've got to get on a tight shot somewhere so that you can go to the penalty afterwards. I think you did, but it was sort of a mid shot. You need to crunch in on that tight shot, cut that in, and then you can go to the penalty. But not a bad package. Rodri, yours, I've written down here, don't put in too many words. Let it breathe. There's just a sense that you might overwrite, and if you do, and you're scrambling to get to the right moment where he scores a goal, then you know you've written too much. You just need to let it breathe a little bit more. And I think on the replay that you showed, I don't know if there was much to go back before your edit point. You need to go back and get more of that replay, because it was just cut too tight. Okay, Ross, I think the Eastleigh Old Boy. See, I love this story. It's great. It's a really good local story. I think, have a look at your rushes again and see, it looked like on one of your shots, you just used a little clip of it, that the keeper like pulls a hamstring when he makes a save or something. And I just thought, oh, you might be able to develop that or have a little laugh about it. It wasn't badly shot. It was a little bit too samey. And I think that you using a GoPro or whatever you did didn't quite work, because there was something, it was all over the place. It was very difficult to watch. But it was almost like you actually needed somebody else there shooting you as part of it, because we never actually saw that shot as you were part of it. So maybe, I suspect you shot it all on your own, which made it difficult. And what I did want is to hear from more of the players. You heard from one player, really. You heard from the coaches, but you heard from one bloke who seemed to be in charge of it all. And I wanted to hear from lots of players. Just here, again, Vox Pops, freshen it up. What, why do you do it? How's it changed you? Are you fitter, even though you're just walking around? Or, and you would have got some interesting answers. I just think it gives you more flavours. You've got all those examples of people. Your human interest is right in front of you. So don't be afraid just to go, excuse me, what do you think about it? Feel like it's easy. And they're all there, they're all happy, and those that don't want to do it won't do it. But some will talk to you, and I think it just adds a bit of flavour to this story. Then the moustache, the final story, is a terrific story, and you've got some great pictures, and it's told nicely, Stephen, and look at the interview. Look at the way the interview is shot. It's perfect, okay? It's absolutely right. It's framed perfectly. It's beautifully focused. It is perfectly lit and balanced, and it just looks spot on. So from that point of view, absolutely absolutely perfect. What I would like to have seen a little bit more of, because it seemed to be your one fresh shot, and I don't know if it was or not, but it was a little bit different, was the actually spraying the grass, actually putting the white liner on the grass, like you're doing the corner of a pitch, whatever it might be, that, you know, the markings on a pitch. So I thought that was slightly lacking. You may not have had much more, but I just think it needed a bit of this. But again, it's a really nicely told story. You've got the great big wide shots. Don't be afraid of using these other pictures that people provide us with. That's fine, because we're never going to be able to get up and get an aerial shot of that. It was great, and it told the story. And it's a really nice, and finally, maybe we could have got it in the headlines. Maybe it was better than the football goal. Maybe we could have had 4 headlines. Maybe it was worth it, all right? And we could have thought about a joke about November and, you know, however we might have got this moustache in. But, you know, altogether, really good. And then finally, the promo for the features is much better, because there's a bit of music, there's a bit going through it. It slightly drags it. It was a little bit too self-indulgent at the end. But it gave a mix of what we're doing, and it's far better the way this bulletin has been compiled. I think, you know, there is a genuine sense that, you know, you are understanding what a bulletin is all about, and how there must be light and shade. But there's so much human interest in this. I don't know about, I would argue probably about the stories in the order, the running order feels slightly strange to me, but generally, for the amount of work that you have done, this is a much better effort. And you think we are only halfway through the semester, and you have had limited opportunities to do this. I would be very encouraged by what has happened. I like to think it all went through smoothly in the studio. I don't know, because unfortunately I wasn't there. And maybe if we have a conference later on today, then we can discuss certain things. But overall, I think you've done a decent job, folks, and I would be pleased with this. Don't rest on your laurels, because there's plenty to work on. But I like the fact that you're telling us your stories. And one of the difficulties we have felt with students over the years is actually writing to pictures. It's an art, and I think, you know, 3 or 4 of you here have been very good at telling those stories to pictures. That's it from me, guys. I've rambled on for over 20 minutes. I hope it's been of use to you. I'm sorry I'm not there. We'll have a conference very shortly, and I'll be back with some more critique next week, and I'll try and get this program working, and then I can actually highlight some things as they go through. All right, speak to you soon.